My stepson misunderstood everything in the kitchen, and what happened next completely shocked me. So, let me take you back to a Saturday morning in our home. The sun was just coming up, the house smelled like fresh coffee, and I had this bright idea. I thought, hey, today would be the perfect day to teach my stepson, Ethan, a little bit about cooking. He's 12, full of energy, and always curious about how things work. He'd been asking me to show him how to cook breakfast for weeks. So, I figured, why not? I wanted to keep it simple. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, and toast. Nothing fancy, just the classic breakfast. Ethan's face lit up when I told him we were cooking together. He pumped his fist in the air like he'd just won a championship game. I could see he was excited, but I had no idea that excitement was about to turn the kitchen into a full-blown comedy show. I gave him the easiest task first: crack the eggs into the pan. I stepped out for a second to grab my phone in the living room. When I walked back into the kitchen, my jaw nearly hit the floor. Ethan had taken "crack the eggs" literally. Instead of gently tapping them on the counter and opening them up, he had smashed them hard. Eggshells, yolks, and whites were scattered everywhere. Some of the shells had even made it into the frying pan. It looked like he had taken a hammer to them. He looked up at me, his hands sticky, and said proudly, "See? I cracked them, just like you said." I froze. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't want him to feel embarrassed. So, I said, "Well, buddy, you definitely cracked them. But usually, we try to keep the shell out of the pan." He frowned for a second, then broke into a sheepish grin. "Oh, you meant crack them open. My bad." Next came the bread. I told him to put a couple slices in the toaster. Again, I stepped away for just a moment. I think I was refilling my coffee. When I came back, the kitchen smelled like a campfire. Smoke was pouring out of the toaster. Ethan had pushed the lever down 3 times in a row because, in his words, I thought the bread would get extra crispy that way. Extra crispy was an understatement. These slices were completely black. You couldn't even tell they had once been bread. I pulled them out, waving away the smoke, while Ethan shrugged and said, "What? Some people like it crunchy." At this point, I was beginning to see the pattern. He wasn't deliberately messing up. He was just misunderstanding every instruction because he was hearing them literally, not the way I intended. Now came the grand finale, the pancake mix. I had already measured the flour and milk. I handed him a whisk and told him to stir the batter. I said, "Give it a good beating, Ethan." That was a mistake. His eyes lit up like I'd just given him permission to wrestle the batter into submission. He whipped that whisk around like a tornado, batter flying in every direction. It splattered across the counter, onto the fridge, and even onto the ceiling. I still don't know how he managed to get it up there. I stood there in shock, covered in pancake batter, while Ethan grinned proudly and said, "I beat it good, didn't I?" At this point, the kitchen looked like a disaster zone. Eggshells on the floor, burnt toast smoking in the trash, pancake batter dripping down the cabinets. My first instinct was to get angry. I mean, I had wanted a calm, fun breakfast lesson, not a scene from a food fight. I opened my mouth, ready to scold him, but then I looked at his face. He wasn't laughing or being careless. He was trying, really trying. And the only reason he messed up was because he wanted so badly to impress me. That realization hit me hard. It wasn't about the eggs, or the toast, or the pancakes. This was about him wanting to connect, to prove himself, to feel capable. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could yell, and he'd walk away embarrassed, probably never wanting to step foot in the kitchen again. Or I could turn this into a teaching moment. So I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, Ethan. Let's start over. But this time, we'll do it together." We cleaned up the mess, well, mostly. I'm still finding dried pancake batter in random corners of the kitchen even now. But then, side by side, we tried again. I showed him how to gently tap the egg on the counter and open it up with his thumbs. He cracked one perfectly on his second try. His eyes lit up like he'd just unlocked a secret skill. Next, we tried the toast again. This time, I showed him that once in the toaster is usually enough. He pulled it out golden brown, held it up proudly, and said, "Now that's perfect." Finally, the pancakes. I told him to stir slowly, gently, like he was painting a picture. No tornado this time. He focused, tongue sticking out in concentration, and stirred the batter smooth. Then I showed him how to pour it onto the skillet and wait until little bubbles formed before flipping it. When he flipped his first pancake without breaking it, he threw his hands up in victory. Yes. Nailed it. And here's the part that shocked me the most. After we sat down and ate breakfast, yes, we actually had edible food by the end, he looked at me and said, "Thanks for not yelling at me. I thought I ruined everything." That stopped me cold. Because in his mind, the burnt toast, the eggshells, the pancake mess, they weren't just mistakes. They were proof he was failing. And all he wanted was for me to be proud of him. In that moment, I realized the kitchen wasn't the real test. The real test was whether I could choose patience over frustration. Whether I could see past the mess and recognize the effort. Ethan taught me something that morning. He taught me that sometimes kids don't need us to correct every little mistake. They need us to guide them gently, to laugh with them, and to remind them that trying is more important than being perfect. So yeah, my stepson misunderstood everything in the kitchen. But what happened next, watching him grow confident, watching him beam with pride, watching him feel safe enough to admit his fear, that shocked me in the best possible way. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that chaotic morning for anything. Please like and subscribe my channel for more romantic videos.